All right, what's going on, everybody? Got
Ah,
some murder metal mayhem little things here I'm going to show off when we do these lives, but check this one
very
out.
cool.
We're very serious here about true crime and murder metal mayhem, and I'm here with Blahgergirl. What's going on,
Hi,
Blahgergirl?
everybody. Hi, I'm so excited to do this live, guys. This is the first time I've ever done one too, and I think it's your first time too, Pete, right?
I've done a couple of them with AR on his channel,
Okay.
broadcasted on both, but this is the first one hosted by Murder Metal Mayhem.
Woo!
So
Hi, guys.
definitely excited. And great to see everybody. It's awesome to see some of the names I recognize. Blogger is going to probably be a little better at picking up things going on in the chat. But we're going to have a lot of fun here. We're talking
Definitely.
obviously about something that's very serious, but as you guys know from watching the videos that I do, I don't like to do boring. Okay. Because I've spent 30 years of my life doing training for people that work with hazardous materials, pretty
Hmm.
heavy stuff.
Definitely.
But it's, life and death. And so,
Yeah.
most of the people I train are high school educated, just like me.
Okay.
And so I got to keep it simple and I got to make sure they get it. And we got to get through the information. So I don't like to do boring. And I do like to interject a little bit of humor, but not taken away from the seriousness of these topics. And I know some people don't really like that, but it is what it is, and I don't mean anything by that. It's just the way I like to do it, and a pretty intimate situation here in Horns High Studios and Blogger Girl. You're remote, and
I am.
definitely going to be fun here as we get into this with you guys. But I did want to mention, when it comes to the questions, we've got it set up. If you look at the top of the chat, where I think it says top chat, there's a pull down menu where you can ask questions. My wife is going to be the moderator, the lead moderator, and she's going to be keeping an eye on that. We'll take little breaks between to get into some of those questions. If they're quick things, that you guys are chatting about in Blogger Girl, or I can see it as we're talking about that topic, we may bring that into the conversation, but it just depends on the volume of chats here and how fast it's going.
Right.
So I hope you guys understand. We're going to do the very best we can to get through all your questions. And we're not going to tolerate anybody being foolish in the
No.
chat. You'll be removed right away. So just don't do that. I'm not going to deal with it.
Yep.
And so we won't. And so that's how that works. And I got some prizes though, Blogger Girl. I like to do
Yay.
prizes. So we're
Okay.
going to
What
do
are
it.
they?
Well, we're going to do a t-shirt here, Murder Metal Mayhem t-shirt,
Very
which is
cool.
awesome. Oh, there we go.
Oh, I
With
like
the
it.
logo on the front. And I
Uh-huh.
got those in extra large. Yeah, extra large in those. And then
Okay.
I've got a different one. So the winner will get to pick which one they want. The
Okay.
other one is this Murder Metal Mayhem zombie shirt,
Oh, very
and then the
cool.
logo on the back.
Oh, I like
And
that
that
too.
that one I got large and extra large in that. So keep that in mind. I'll do the best I can with you on the sizes. I'm also
Okay.
going to give away some Murder Metal Mayhem die cut stickers. Oops. Everything's in
Oh,
reverse. So
I know, right?
some Murder Metal Mayhem stickers. And then I'm also going to give away a copy of my Deeper Than Dead novel that I'm going to give away as well. So that'll
Very
be at
cool.
the end. So you got to stay to the end, and I'll have an email you can send the answer to enter.
Hmm.
Super simple. And then I'll use a random number generator to pick the winner. So,
Very cool.
and we also have it set up. It's in the ticker at the bottom. If you want to contribute, and don't feel that you have to, guys, by any stretch, but if you want to, you can either do the super sticker. I put a PayPal address on there if you want to email that or PayPal that. But again, don't feel at all obligated. But a lot of people have asked about it, so that's why that's there. And so we're going to start out Blahgergirl, I think, we're going to be talking, of course, Idaho 4, but what about the recent alibi update with
Oh,
Burger? What do you think about it?
yeah. Well, I saw it the day it came out and pretty early on. And did a video about it, just kind of reading it for people, but dived a little bit more into it. At the very end of it, there is Cy Ray, who's going to be the expert that the defense is calling. His CV is stacked. Like, I have
It's
not seen
ridiculous.
a more impressive person in my life. This guy has done everything you can think of when it comes to criminal investigation work, and he specializes in alibis and looking in the cell tower, the cell phone type of history, and analysis of that. So it's going to be I'm excited to see what he says on the stand. It's going to be very interesting. I hope I can keep up because I'm more of like the layman term understanding of things. So I look at it as very simple. So I'm hoping he explains it in a simple way that we can understand, because it's going to be
Well,
imperative that he does, you know?
I've got some good news for you because I watched on Truth and Transparency. Lana had played an excerpt from
Mm-hmm.
one of his podcasts because he's a podcaster on YouTube.
Uh-huh.
You can watch him and his wife. It's fantastic. And he was talking about some pretty complex stuff
Mm-hmm.
related to phones. And
Right.
he was talking to her, and they do it very conversational. It's very well done.
Okay.
But he was amazing at
That's
talking
great.
about complicated things in very simple terms, not at all like haughty, like look at all these degrees on the wall behind me kind of a guy. And not that there's anything wrong with having a bunch of degrees on the wall, but this guy is very personable. He's going to come across fantastic on the witness stand. I think he's going to make Brett Payne and any nonsense he's going to be talking about on the witness stand look like an absolute joke. I mean, this guy's going
Absolutely.
to mop the floor. I think Bill Thompson may have, some sort of health issue. I don't want to wish anything bad on the guy, but I
No.
brought this up in a video that if that happens, Blogger Girl, I think we should assign Dylan Mortensen to be the designated 911 caller if something
Oh
were to
boy.
happen, so that this way, maybe
Yeah,
he
don't
can get
expect
that
that for 8 hours.
prompt attention from her. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, Cy is fantastic, very personable. So yeah, he's got a channel. I don't remember what it's called, but
Something with
like I said,
tea. I saw what you're talking about. They sit down and have tea, and I think they talk about things, right? Is that the right one?
yeah, they're
Yeah.
sitting apart from each other, like facing each other, and he's
Yeah.
like explaining the cases to her, and they're
Right.
back and forth. It's very interesting. I've never seen something done that way. I thought it was really cool.
Very
So
cool.
yeah,
And
he's
and
he's
his
great.
wife is law enforcement too.
Oh,
Ex-law
okay.
enforcement. So
I
when they talk
see
about it,
Farm Girls in the comments says he's like a storybook reader. I would agree with that. He's very good. Very, very
very
good.
good.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And both of them have that military. Both of them have that law enforcement background. So I feel like their conversations are going to be very interesting to listen to and give us a
Mhm.
little insight into what he's going to sound like on the stand.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, and you brought up the law enforcement background. As we know, this is his first case. He's going to provide the
Yeah.
testimony for the
First one.
defense, which is
Yeah.
which is pretty impressive. I mean, he's staking his
Yeah,
reputation on it.
he's typically the prosecution side.
Right.
Usually an expert for the prosecution, which I found that
Always.
extremely interesting. Like,
Right.
well, whoa. I mean, he's not going to put his reputation on the line with without knowing something definitively. I just don't see this man who has such a crazy credential background and CV putting his and usually typically for the prosecution all of a sudden turning wind and being for the defense for no reason. There's got to be a good reason, solid reason that he sees. And there was one thing that I did want to bring up. There is in the alibi they talk about that he said, well, I know it's coming from him, but through Anne, right? Because she's the one writing this, but she's basically saying
Right.
that we need the discovery. And if they don't provide it, they're either didn't preserve it or they're like they are not giving it to you. They're withholding it.
Right.
And I feel like that came directly from Cy because he
Oh,
obviously knows
yeah.
something is missing. He's
Right.
like, it's got to be there. Where is it?
That
And
is such a tease, though. It's like, what is this? It looks like it's something pretty darn important for them to bring it up like that, I would think, you know. I mean, that's pretty ominous the way that kind of
right.
ends that whole thing. Like, okay, now it's your move, fool. What are you gonna do? Because this is like the bomb dropped on him. Could you imagine the missed meals and lost sleep he's had since this came
Oh,
out? I think
yeah.
it's ridiculous. I was watching some of the mainstream, begrudgingly watching
Yeah.
some of the mainstream coverage of this, and they're mocking, you know, Brian Koberger's alibi. I mean, said he was driving around when they got him,
Uh-huh.
and 18 months later, what's his alibi? It's the same damn thing. I was driving around. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't understand what the problem is. I know that they're hung up on the fact he was driving around, but he hasn't wavered from that. And now it's like, okay, I was driving around and I've got proof because this Cy expert is saying my phone shows that I was not even in the state of Idaho, for God's sake.
Right.
So, I mean, I honestly don't know what you can do with that. I mean, if that's definitive, and I can't imagine it's not, because like I said, and you said, this guy's putting his whole reputation on the line.
Right.
If he's saying that, then I think that that's legit. I honestly don't know do you know where they came up with that ridiculous route that they claim that he took when the
Well,
prosecution said that?
I think it's just the most simple explanation. It also had that, which is the first time we'd ever heard about that cannabis store being mentioned in the alibi. I've never even heard about that location, but I think that's where they got the picture of the Elantra apparently on the security cam. And I think
But that
I
was
think it was,
going there. But then they had that route south that was kind of in a U up toward back up to Pullman through like the sticks.
well, I mean,
But I don't know where they got that from.
to answer your question, I don't believe anything in that PCA. So
Oh, I agree.
I don't know where they got any of it. Where did they get her with the bushy eyebrows not calling for it? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me. It did at the beginning when I thought, oh, there's the DNA there. Okay, cool. They have them, whatever. But eventually, when you really look at it, they don't really have much. And if this guy's going to blow out the cell phone situation, what do they have on them?
Right.
That's what I want to know. Like you said, you had that Santa video. What's the alibi now? Like, you know, I mean, it's
Right.
kind of like, I don't know where they're going to go from here because a lot of it can be, we've already explained the knife sheath. The DNA is one cell. They couldn't even retest it. There's not much there. You can get that from anywhere. So it's kind of like, okay, what else is there? There's no blood DNA. There's no blood. There's no DNA at the scene, at his apartment, in his office, in his car.
Right.
None of it. So, okay, so there's no DNA there. So what else do they have? Okay, well, they say it's a wonky. Going back to what you said about them making fun of him, because I saw that too. And they got so stuck on that sentence of the moon and the stars. And I think that was planted. That was Anne. Yes. I think that she purposely put that in there to see what the mainstream media would do it. And it's going to prove her bias even more because they're getting stuck on that instead of looking at who they're going to have on the stand. They don't even talk. I mean, I saw Truth and Transparency again. I love her. I love Lana. So it's fine. But she went specifically and was watching different mainstream medias just to see what they said. And they didn't even mention Cy once.
Wow.
There was 2 channels that I think hinted towards an expert. And there was, I think it was the Today Show was the only one that actually said something about it. The rest of them didn't even mention that they were having an expert. And I'm like, that's the main meat of this. Why are you guys looking at the moons and the stars? Like,
right.
What's that got to do, you know? But I think she did on purpose to answer your question.
And the thing is, the way that was worded too, is it didn't necessarily say that on that night he was out there looking at moons and stars. It's just that when he went to that area, that's what he liked to do. So people I know were all crazy about that. It was cloudy. It was this, it was that. that to me doesn't matter. They were trying to show that there was a history of him going down there, and on that night he was down there as well, and he's got the proof.
Yep.
So
They're
I
saying
don't
he went
know.
south, not east.
Right.
So that'll be interesting.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
I did a video on it, and I'm thinking that that's like 19 miles from Pullman, like
Right.
southwest from Pullman. So,
Okay.
and I Googled, I mean, that's what was killing me too, was the mainstream media idiots that they had on were talking about how the cell phone, the fact that he had turned his phone, that they always say he turned his phone off. Well, I Googled what's the cell service like in that Wawaiwe Park,
Mm-hmm.
and TripAdvisor was the first thing that came up, says there is no cell coverage. It's a canyon. So
Well, there you go. Yep.
what so
But there
in
had
one moment with a simple Google search, so that's just how lazy they are in the
right.
mainstream media. They don't even have the wherewithal to find out what was the cell service like where he was at. We've
Right.
heard people in Moscow say that they lose cell service all the time. And
Right.
this is like in the boonies, so I don't get it. They're so in the tank for the prosecution side of this thing. I mean, the media used to be, and I stress used to be, kind of a watchdog for the little guy, you know what I mean, to keep
Yeah.
people in check and report the news, but now it's all biased news. And in
It's
this
all
case, it's
opinion.
so ridiculously biased for one side. I mean, it's
Yeah.
total nonsense,
Well, and that's what's scary too, because if you think about it, like if any of us were to get in trouble, God forbid, but if we did, this is what we're going to be dealing with. And that's scary. So I don't, as far as the cell coverage, I want to believe that that's a lie or that's a poke a hole in that PCA, because how would Cy Ray have any evidence if he didn't have his phone on?
right.
So there has to have been
Well,
something there.
it's the physical something in the phone with the geo data. It's not like the pinging. It has to do with the actual phone itself. So he can pinpoint where it was based on that. I'm just like,
That's
you know, that's obviously way over my head. But when I got a
yeah,
guy
me
that's
too.
got a CV that basically is resume, which is like if I was writing a novel and I wanted to bring in this cool, well-spoken, very experienced expert witness, I would write this character in there. I mean, this guy is like right out of central casting. It's ridiculous. So again, I don't know how they're going to combat it. They're going to obviously have an expert that's going to say something else, but I'm having a hard time, thinking that that's even going to, be anything but laughable.
Well, they mentioned that he took pictures, right, of the night sky and things like that.
Right.
There's going to be geotagging, or there's going to be evidence
Right.
there
Mm-hmm.
placing him in different places. And if it shows that it's a regular thing that he does, where he drives around and these are the places he goes, it's not out of the norm. It's not out of character for him to be doing this, which proves that he's not lying when he says the same thing. Like you said, he said it multiple times. I was
Right.
driving. I couldn't sleep.
Right.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
what do you want me to do? This is what I usually do. I usually go running, but because I'm in school, I haven't been doing that. So I go for drives at night. And that's basically what it was saying. It had evolved
Right.
from running all the time to now he drives around the area. So that'll be really interesting to see. Did he take a picture that night of the night sky, the night of the murders?
Right.
Because that would prove that he's in another area and not in that house.
Right.
So
Right.
I don't know, that was very interesting. I'm excited to see what he has to say. And if you, like they said, I think Richard said that it's the Socialite Club is his
Mm-hmm.
and he's the president and owner of that production company. So that is his baby. I was looking at a CB and it said president of the Socialite Club. So that is his
Oh,
business.
okay. That
So that'll
okay.
interesting. I'm like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
I want to watch more of his videos. I'll be honest, I haven't really seen too much. I saw a little snippet. I started watching the very first video where he talked about how he got into the law enforcement, and it's interesting. Maybe we could even drop the link for that, or put that when you post it. I don't know if this automatically posts after we're done here, but
It does.
if you
It does.
if you can add a link, I can always send that to you, and they can watch where he explains his background. His wife explains her background.
Yeah, I'll
You
pin
guys
it.
can probably check it out.
I'll make a comment and pin it, and so it'll be at the top of the
That'd be great. Yeah.
comment section when on the replay.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Excellent.
But,
Yeah, I mean, I thought, it's very promising, and that this all started, I think, Blahgergirl, with how this kind of tide has turned even slightly. I mean, Brian Koberger, in my opinion, has been treated abysmally by what's been going on, whether it be the mainstream media making him out to be like Hannibal Lecter, to everything legally that's the judge is so one-sided also. I mean, it's so this is like some ray of hope that maybe this guy's going to have a fighting chance. And it all started, I think, with the hearing about the survey. I mean, and Bill Thompson just going absolutely nuts. I mean, did you see any of that stuff?
Yeah, I did a little bit. I don't know if you want to like kind of dive into it a little bit more.
Well, I was just going to say that in that hearing, because this expert, also another fantastic expert they had, Dr. Edelman, who headed up the survey
He was great.
that everybody was going nuts about. He was also fantastic, very well,
very good,
all the experience you'd need. And so he was fantastic, but then Bill Thompson was going crazy when he was cross-examining him. And that's when he spilled out about that, that it was not true that Brian Koberger had been stalking the victim. So that of course was like a fall off your chair moment for me. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, do you think he did that on purpose? I mean, do you think he meant to say that, or did he slip?
I think he slipped. I think that was like, he could have doused that fire so long ago and didn't. He let that just roll out where people thought this fake Instagram was real and he was following these girls. And the fact that he outright said it's not true. And that's, I can't believe you're asking these questions to these potential jurors that have questions that aren't true or not fact. And it's like, whoa, this is not fact. You knew it wasn't fact and you didn't say anything to anybody, not the mainstream media, like guys, knock it off, that's not true, we didn't put that out there, don't believe that. No, he let it just run, which is where like, okay, now I'm questioning everything that you're saying, buddy. Like, this is not okay to do something like that to somebody. That really frustrated me when I heard that. I felt bad because it's like, can you imagine there's this rumor about there and law enforcement does nothing to douse it and allows it to just keep perpetuating.
He could have easily held a press conference and said, can you please stop reporting this because it's not true? Right. If he was truly worried, that's what was killing me, is that when Bill Thompson, when he was complaining about this survey tainting the jury pool, instead of being truthful of what his real problem was with it, he's like pulling this like Academy Award crying performance about Brian's rights and that his rights are being violated. And I was like, dude, are you kidding me? I mean, you've done nothing but kick his rights in the nuts. I mean, that's all you've done. Yeah, I mean, you've just been ridiculous,
Well, here's the thing. They were trying to say that stalking wasn't even said in the PCA. Like, that word was never said in the PCA. So, but it's like, but what do you think people are going to get from that when you're saying that he goes by the house 12 times prior to the murders?
Right.
They're going to assume that he's stalking and like casing out the joint, as they say it, right? Like, he's casing out the house. He's planning his murders. He's planning his crime. That's what I got from it, reading it, going, oh, okay, they're insinuating that he was planning this, that this was something he was stalking them. Yeah.
But what was absurd about that, though, is that they couldn't say he was by that house. Those towers, what did he cover, like a 20-mile radius? So, I mean, he could have been anywhere in Moscow. There was even the one that the PCA itself called out, was that he was in Pullman and he pinged off the tower in Moscow. So any of that phone ping stuff that they've brought up is as useful as I don't even know. It's ridiculous because it wouldn't show that he was by that house. I mean,
No.
if you've got the stuff like Ray is going to be throwing down, then you could maybe
Yeah.
pinpoint it, but not off phone pings, not when you've only got one tower or a couple towers. You need three towers to triangulate, and they
Right.
couldn't do that. So, and I don't trust Moscow PD to run a friggin' lemonade stand, let
No.
alone orchestrate some sort of, you know, data interpretation that I don't, like you said, I don't believe in anything in that PCA. That thing was like
No.
written like some cheap, you know, pulp fiction story. I mean, it's absurd.
I just think that the fact that if we can poke holes in this piece, it's their job, right? Their job is to create reasonable doubt. And if they're creating it already, and we're not even in trial yet, and you're going to have
Right.
these experts blow this away. I mean, if you guys missed Dr. Edelman, definitely please watch that. I have the full thing recorded on my channel if you want to watch it from the 2.5 hours. But
Awesome.
he
Yeah,
was
no, that
so
was really good.
he was so good. Like, and this why we're saying he's so good. Not we're not just gonna say that, we're gonna explain what we mean by that. He how do I he did a survey and he was calling people. He called 400. There's that number again, 400 people. He called
Right.
400 people, and apparently that's like 1% of the 40,000 people that are in Latah County. And he
Right.
was asking them questions, and he explained closed versus open-ended questions. And open-ended is like, what have you heard about the case? That could be anything, right? That's so broad. But when he said closed-ended, he's asking, have you seen or heard that Brian Koberger had a knife sheath, right? When he asked that question, it's going to specifically a memory if that person has one that they heard about that specific thing. And he stated a bunch of different times, not only in previous cases, but previous times he's used this method where he's been doing it for 15 years. This method has been going on for at least 45 or more years that they've been using this method of surveying. And he said, by asking, I've done it where I've just a comparison, apples to apples. He'd ask an open-ended, and then he'll ask a closed-ended, and it's the person all of a sudden remembers all these details. And he's like, but I just asked you, what did you know about the case? And you said, no, you didn't know anything. And then they ask him specific questions, and they're like, oh yeah, I remember seeing that, blah, blah, blah. And they give like
Right.
3 to 6 details, and you're like, I just asked you if you knew anything, you know? So he's explaining why, because he was like, why are you asking specific questions about Brian Koberger? You know, Bill was getting all pissy about it. And it's like, then he proceeds, and this is why I want to get your take on this. He proceeds to tell the whole, like, well, the whole world technically, because anyone can watch this, right? But
Right.
specifically the 40,000 people that are in Latah that they're saying, oh, we might have to exclude those 400 people because they heard these questions. He just read all 9 questions in court.
Right.
And it's like, you just
Exactly.
tainted all 40,000 people and anyone
Right.
else from any other surrounding areas too. Like,
Exactly. Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah,
good
it's
job.
absurd. It's absurd. And then all the stuff in the mainstream media, like we were just talking about with the stalking nonsense, is you want to talk about tainting the jury pool. I mean, most people, that's how they get their information. You know, we're seeing
Mm-hmm.
a growing community here on YouTube, and there's
Right.
several true crime creators that, you know, I like to watch, and I
Same.
love to learn my information from hearing some of them.
Mm-hmm.
And when I watch, and I did just the other night watch something on Law and Crime, and I was just like jaw dropped
Yeah.
that they, like you said, like not even mentioning Ray
Not
and
once.
laughing about the moon and the stars. And I'm just like, man, you guys are really ridiculous. I mean, like I
Yeah.
said, a simple Google search would show you that maybe that's why his phone wasn't on, you know, on a network, because there was no service where he was, you know. So I just think, you know, they're really belittling the guy for corroborating a story that has been his story since the beginning. I mean, what did they expect him to say? He was at Walmart, you know, buying, you know, a flannel shirt, and, you know, he's got it on video. I mean, he didn't change up what he said. He was driving around, you know.
Yeah. Well, but I definitely want to look into Ray's background a little bit more, really understand, like, has he testified ever before? So I'm definitely going to look into that, and maybe the next time we talk about it, I'll have a little bit more information for you guys. But
Yeah.
based on just the court documents, it was interesting to see what he has done in the past for his CV. But I wanted to talk about Stanfield. She had a segment, and it was kind of funny because she had an attorney on, and I think she thought he was automatically going to agree with her, and he did it in such a way where he didn't agree. He wasn't like outright saying I don't agree with you, but I'm like, I wish I
Right.
had that finesse. Like, he just did it in such a way like, no, I don't agree with you, but I'm not going to say outright that I don't agree with you. And he
Right.
started poking holes in what she was saying, and the minute she realized he wasn't like automatically agreeing with what she was saying, she started throwing more allegations out there. And I'm like, how is Nancy Grace, Ashley Banfield, whatever like notable media, how are they not being checked by like judge? There's this gag order,
Right.
but they're allowed to just say all these things, and they're supposed to be credible media sources, actual media, and basing things on fact, and they're just throwing these opinions out there, and that kind of worries me. It's like, but he's so worried about the parents or the people directly involved in the case, but I think they're doing more damage by not checking what they are saying and just putting their
I
feelings out there and
agree.
their opinions. So I don't know.
I agree.
What do you think?
I agree. Yeah, I think that this whole thing, I mean, these surveys are very, commonplace, and there should be no pushback on it. That's what the problem they have with the survey is that it tells them what they are, that what we've already known since this started, that there's no damn way he's getting a fair trial in Latah County. So
No.
all this did was solidify that, so
Right.
they don't like that. They also don't like that somebody from out of town is telling them this, because those people, I've said it before, it's like a mix of Children of the Corn, The Twilight Zone, Twin Peaks, and let's throw The Sopranos into it. Okay.
Yeah.
These people are nuts over there. I don't know what is going on. And if you're from there, I'm sorry. I'm sure there's some normal people there, but the overwhelming, I mean, it's just some creepy stuff. Could you imagine something like that happening in a town that small and not everybody talking about it?
Yeah, I
This
don't see
is
that
like the
happening. They all know.
creepiest thing. This is the creepiest thing. I mean, the
Well, okay.
entire town is like
To add-
scared to death.
Yeah, to add to that, I mean, who called Bill Thompson or the prosecution office?
Yeah.
And and here's my point to you. How did they know to call the prosecution and not the defense or the, public defender's office? This is an anonymous survey. They don't know who's asking these questions.
It's
So
bullshit.
how did they know to call Bill Thompson?
It's somebody of his. I mean, that guy probably knows everybody. So of the 400, there had to be a handful of them that he knew, and they probably called him and said, "Do you believe what they're doing?" And then recorded it for him. That's what I think. Of course it does.
Bias, right?
Of
So
course
I mean,
it does.
I don't know.
I mean,
I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, who calls the friggin' police? I mean, you had Brett Payne investigating this thing. I mean, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. I mean,
wasn't he new?
He's only been, well, at the time the incident happened was just 2 years on the force.
That's still like, to me, that's like new. Like, you think they have way more people that are more capable of doing this that have been there for a lot longer.
You would think
that would take lead on this, or let the FBI take the lead on it.
Yeah.
I thought that was so bizarre. I did a little video where I was showing that he's saying, we're going to see this through, and then cuts to, oh, but I'm retiring. And I'm like, yeah, you real saw that through. But it's just like, why? And then what's weird about his retirement is it's before the year mark, which I thought was bizarre. Usually people wait to get certain.
Yeah, you're talking about Fry, right? Not Payne. You're talking about Fry.
No, I'm talking about Fry. I'm talking about Fry. I'm sorry, I kind of jumped topics, but yeah, I was thinking law enforcement. But yeah, Fry retiring before the 30-year mark, and then him saying we're going to see this through, and he just leaves, and a lot of other senior people left too. And then, but what I'm saying is that they were there during the time. So why did Payne take the lead on the case when it should have been maybe one of your senior people? I think that would have been better.
Yeah, I mean, you would think. I don't understand it. I mean, I don't know what the hell business he even had on that scene at all. The guy had never processed a murder before.
No.
So, I mean, you're going to put somebody who's never done that before on a case that is that, I mean, the only thing that, I mean, I'm sure they probably didn't think it was going to get to this point. I mean, who would think that, right?
Mhm.
But it did. But I don't know. It seems like such a poor choice. And then, I just pointed this out in the new True Crime Deep Cuts that I did about the 4 hours it took to get him out there. He didn't
Yeah.
show up out there till 4 p.m. that day. So it's like, what the hell was more important than that? Like, were you at like lunch and I mean, like, I don't understand it. Like, get your butt over there. I mean, the cop that I interviewed, he said it's standard, that they're there within the hour.
Within the hour. And in one of them, I
Mhm.
don't know if it was Fry, I can't remember who they said went home and changed before they went over there. And it's
I'm
like,
not sure about that.
what are you doing? Like, you get over there. And then not only that, but the coroner. She doesn't show up till 5 PM.
Right.
This call came in at 12. And like I've
Exactly.
seen so many different I did like a little comparison video on that too, where I was watching a completely different crime show and the police officer was saying, hey, like in this county, we don't touch that scene until the coroner gets there. We don't, because we don't know how to process. This is their forte. And then you cut to Kathy Mabbitt and she's like, oh yeah, I didn't show up till 5. I was letting the police do their investigation. And it's like,
Right.
they can't touch the bodies until you get there. Like, they can't do
Right.
anything. Like, I don't
Right.
understand what you're talking about. You are the lead person here. And I've
Yeah, you're
watched it like,
wasting all this time to be able to
yep,
narrow down a time of death. I see
yeah.
AR Hayes in the chat there. What's up,
Hi.
AR? Always respectful. I always say AR stands for American Rebel, but he says it's not. But that's how he is. So, but yeah, that the whole sequence of this thing is just the strangest thing, honestly. But yeah, it just shows, that these people were so out of their depth. I mean, they was so over their head. I don't understand why they just didn't completely back off and just let the feds completely handle it.
I don't either,
But
because they're even the state police, anyone
well,
above this small town, get their help.
Tolleson was the one they sent, and that's the guy that's all embroiled in that mess up north, Idaho, Bonner's Ferry with Dr. Moore and that whole fiasco where he was in a
Oh
whole
Lord.
bunch of hot water, civil lawsuit pending where he, you know, conveniently said he didn't record an interview, but then it was
Right.
found that he did, and all of
Right.
that nonsense. So that's the guy the state of Idaho thought was a good person to head the whole situation.
Yeah.
Supposedly, Tolleson's the one that talked to Dylan and talked to Bethany that night
Oh
or
boy.
whenever they did the next day, supposedly. But, none of this stuff is recorded. I mean, have you ever, in following true
No.
crime, have you ever seen where
N
that stuff is not
Sorry to
recorded?
answer your question. I was to answer your question before you answered or asked it. Yes, no, I've never seen that, and, the fact
I
that they
mean,
talked to Brian and never recorded it.
Crime Circus has made a living showing police interrogation videos.
Yes.
It's
Well,
like
it's
they're
supposed to be
always there.
recorded, and they
Right.
didn't record talking to Brian apparently before. I don't know if they just didn't give him his, rights, you know, before they talked to him, and then they ended up doing so that's why they couldn't use it. I don't But who doesn't give the Miranda rights and ask him the question you need to ask? I don't understand, like, until he asks for a lawyer, you need to record everything he's saying because now he can deny it, or he can say that there's no proof of that. So what are you talking about? I never said that.
Right.
Um, that's concerning to me. All the interviews, I'm praying that they interviewed and recorded those girls and we just don't know about it yet because but then if this guy, like you're saying, is in hot water, they can contest that saying, well, he has issues over here. So he's the one that interviewed them. So that shouldn't be shown in court. Let's throw those out.
Well, that Brady
So
Giglio issue revolves around the two, and that's the thing. The cast of characters that the law enforcement put on this case, the first two that showed up, I cannot
yeah.
remember their names off the top of my head, but those two from Moscow PD are the ones that were involved in the Stickergate fiasco with that Christchurch nonsense and all
Mhm.
that they got into a bunch of trouble over there. those two are the reason I heard that that's Brady Giglio, which is, when you have somebody that's under investigation. So
Mhm.
those are the two first people that showed up to the scene. And then you got Brett Payne heading up, the lead investigator from Moscow, and then Gary Tolleson from the Idaho State Police was on their end. And I mean, seriously, I mean, that is like the Bad News Bears trying to handle the biggest case in the state history. I mean, it's unbelievable,
Right.
unbelievable that they would put those people on there.
Well, I'm just scared that it's going to get thrown out because of who they are, and if there's Brady Giglio type situations going on, are they going to say it's unreliable and we can't show that in court? It's not admissible. That concerns me because I mean, these are big parts of this case. I want to know them. I want to see them. And I'm scared they're going to be like, oh, we can't put it in there because of X so-and-so was the one who did the interview. Or X so-and-so was the one who
Yeah.
did this part of the case. And I'm like, I don't know. I know we wanted to talk about the family, right? How their tone and connected to the mainstream media and
Yeah.
how they
Yeah.
believe
You're talking
he's
about the
guilty.
Gonzalez family.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. What were your thoughts on their response to Brian's alibi?
I'm concerned because I saw that Steve was more kind of middle ground like we are, in the sense that I'm going towards more not guilty for Brian at this point, just based on what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, but we'll see what also comes out. I'm still going to be open-minded because we don't know what prosecution supposedly has. That's all under gag order and seal. So
Right.
I'm kind of we're middle ground, right? And he was kind of that way too. Like when he did interviews, he would say, so he says, you're open to it being someone else. And he said, yeah. And he was like, pretty like, kind of not so much like Christy's like, yes, he's guilty. And she's on that bandwagon. She thinks he's the one who murdered her child and she is all for it. Whereas like Steve, like I if it is him, great, we have him. Hopefully we'll get justice for that. But he was open. He said, are you open to other people? And he said, yeah. The most recent one I saw of him, his tone had changed. He was more it was on The Interview Room. If you guys had seen that interview with the Gonzalez family, they just did it recently. And very respectfully
Right.
done. It was very, very good interview, but his tone totally against Brian at this point. And I think it's being muddled with the frustration he has with law enforcement and how long they're taking. I think that they should be mad at Bill for allowing this to take an additional 6 months. Because remember, we were talking about that, how he was like, we got to get this done. Him and Judge were like, we got to get this done as quickly as possible.
Right.
And then she's like, yo, I have, 51 terabytes of information to go through. And I don't even have everything. You guys give it to me piecemealed. Like I'll get without the attachment connected together. And I have to figure out where everything is, who did this interview, this and that. And so if it was organized, yeah, I could see that happening, but it's not organized. And now I have to go through all this, right? But
Right.
the fact that it didn't come organized to them, and then all of a sudden he changed his tune, and I'm talking about Bill. He goes, oh yeah, it's going to take a while. So we agree. Let's give it this. So he allowed the 6 months to go by before we're seeing these hearings now happen. And I can see why the family go, what the heck? Why are you letting 6 months go by? That doesn't make any sense to me. This is now perpetuating on and on. And so that I did see the tone change a little bit, in the sense that now they're kind of agreeing with mainstream media that he's guilty. And my biggest concern is I don't want an innocent person going to prison for this. And what also
I
creeps me
agree.
out is if he's not guilty, then the people who
Somebody's out
are
there,
watching
people out there.
this.
Right.
They're watching all of our comments. They're watching all of this play out and probably sitting back laughing.
Right.
So that concerns me too. I mean, I don't know. What do you think?
No, I agree. I think it's unbelievable that they would be buying this hook, line, and sinker with the with what they're hearing in the mainstream media, because I don't agree with it, at all. I don't
And if
agree
you're
with that take
if you're
on it.
joining us, yeah, if you're just joining us, guys, hi. We just wanted to give you
Yeah, I'm seeing some
say hello,
questions
because I know
here,
a lot of people came
Blahgergirl.
late.
I'm
Yeah,
in the
sure.
question section here. So let's see. Let me see
Let's
if
see
I can
if we
find
can
them.
answer it for you.
I thought they were. Hang on a second.
I have another point with the family too when we get back to that.
Yeah, I'm looking here. I thought I had. Here's somebody. Okay, here we go.
They're asking to
What's
block
your
somebody.
What's your thoughts on Brittany or Bethany? I always say Brittany. Bethany getting a police stop October 22 for tailgating the same day. No, talking about Brian getting pulled over in what's our thoughts on them getting pulled over on their way to Pennsylvania? They're twice in Indiana.
I'm sorry, say that one more time for me. They were saying I was cutting out, so I'm sorry if you guys haven't heard me. Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah, you did cut out a little bit there, but no,
Okay.
the person asked what we thought about Brian and his dad getting pulled over twice there in Indiana.
I think it was fixed. They were keeping tabs on
Yeah.
him.
Yeah, well, they
Because
had lost him for a while, I know, for a few hours, but yeah, it did seem weird. They pulled him over twice, not too far apart. But some people say they were looking for like cuts on his hands and that sort of thing, but I don't know if that's true. I mean, what in the hell would you let him drive 2,500 miles across the country to go look at cuts on his hands? But
well, that and
yeah,
they
it
didn't give
doesn't
him a
make a lot
ticket
of
once.
right.
They
Yeah,
didn't give him
just a
one
warning.
ticket. And the
Right.
second call or the second footage I can see, I don't know if there's another angle to this, but the second footage I have, the camera's pointed towards the floor. So you can't even see Brian and his dad in the car. And the officer's like leaning in talking to them, but it's like his chest is to the floor, so you see his shoes only.
Right.
Did you guys see that?
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was just really, really, it was just strange. Everything about this case is strange. It almost seems like everything's play acted to me. Nothing seems real. I don't know what it is. I see another question here. Do you think the K bar is in the Wawawi Canyon? I don't know. I don't think there was a K bar used in these crimes, to be completely honest with you. What do you think, Blogger Girl?
No. I think it was planted. So, I don't can you guys still hear me? I'm, like,
Yeah.
worried that I'm, like, freezing and stuff.
No, I can hear you. No, you're all right.
Okay. That no, I don't believe that that is the murder weapon. I think that's
Yeah, I don't
planted.
think so either. That was from True Crime Cult. So what's up, man?
Nice.
Let's see. Maddie wants to know, has it been proven that Brian didn't stalk the girls? And what is the evidence showing that? I think we talked about this, but anything you wanted to add about the whole stalking issue?
Uh, it's never outright mentioned in the PCA. But it is
Right,
implied when you read that, saying that he went by the 12 times towards the house before, right? We talked about that. The Instagram account, I believe people have debunked that as being fake. So that was not real, that he was not following the girls prior to this murder or after.
right,
And there's ways to prove that. I mean, as long as they're looking at it, they can tell when he had or did not have counts, when they were closed, who he was following. I mean, there's ways to track all of that, so that I'm not too worried about. That can be debunked in 2 seconds in court. So
right,
that I'm not worried about. But the stalking, I don't see, like, other than them maybe meeting at Mad Greek because I know he was vegan. That is the only other connection I can think of, or
right,
maybe a drug related. I don't see how he has any connection to
right.
these victims. So
Yeah,
that's my
somebody
take
brought
on it.
up something about the drug issue in the comment section on one of my videos here recently, that we never heard that Brian was suffering withdrawal. If he was truly
No,
addicted to some sort of heavy drugs, we would have probably known about it. Certainly didn't look like he was affected by any heavy drugs. So I'm not buying any of that
I
myself.
mean,
But
unless he wasn't using and he's just selling it or being like the go-to person to get it. But I don't see how a former addict, and I could be completely wrong if you've been in that situation before, but they tend to not put themselves in situations that are going to be tempting, or at least try not
r-
to. So I don't see why
right,
he would do that as a business but not be involved in it at all. I mean, that takes some crazy
right,
willpower, but
right. Yeah. Melissa French asked, do we think that BK is another Ted Bundy? Um,
no.
I don't think Brian did this at all personally. I mean, I'm trying stay in the middle, but everything that's been coming out lately makes me lean toward he didn't do this at all. But even if
Right.
he had some involvement, I am not seeing him being the one that actually did the acts that ended those 4 people. I'm just not seeing it. Maybe at the most a getaway driver or something like that, but I'm not seeing him doing this. This was absolute brutality. This was somebody that had done this before. This is not somebody just or somebody that was so dark and disturbed. I mean, we've talked about in other videos we've done, about all the people we think may have had a hand in it, but I'm just not seeing Brian as a serial killer, Ted Bundy type character.
Well, and here and let me see if you have an answer to this, because I still been racking my brain. I can't figure it out. And someone mentioned in the chat, it made me think about that too. Why would they let him drive home? They could have pulled him in for questioning at any point, got a DNA sample, and cleared him if they truly believed that he did this or had anything to do with this. And if he did, they would know, right? And they would
Right.
know if he's complying or not. Then they can get a forced order to do that. But they didn't do that at all. They creepily follow him all the way to Pennsylvania with his dad in the car and watch
Right.
him at his house and then take trash that's not even belonging to him. It's belonging to his father to try to do this weird backwards way of a DNA genealogy thing that's going to be contested in court. It doesn't stand up. It hasn't been used before through touch DNA, but they could have just went and got him a sample way
Right.
earlier than when they did. I don't understand that. So can you have any plausible explanation as to why they would have done that?
Not really. I did see somebody in the comments, and I don't know if this was just their personal take or if they actually heard this somewhere, but that the reason why they let him go was so that he would be like a fugitive type of situation. But I don't know. I mean, if you thought that guy did that to 4 people, I can't imagine you don't just pull him in off the street. Go ahead. And I mean, when I interviewed the Australian police officer for that new True Crime Deep Cuts, we talked about this, and he said we would have scooped him up. I know AR said something about they've got like 72 hours to hold you. That would have been all the time they would have needed to swab him, get the results, from Othram that just magically was able to turn results around like FedEx, overnight. And they would have had the results they needed. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to go all the way to Pennsylvania to dig through the garbage. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So let's
They're
see.
saying
I
our
see
sound
another
is
question here. This is a
Hey Pete, they're saying our sound is bad. I'm
what's
not sure
that?
if it's both of us, one side. They're saying our sound isn't very good. So trying to fix the audio.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've got a solid connection, and you're coming in a little broken here and there, but I mean, I haven't had any like major
Too craziness.
issues
Okay.
that, at least on my end, I
Okay.
seem like I'm solid here. So, but
Okay.
sorry if there's any hiccups there. We don't have much control over the internet.
Yeah, sorry
But
guys. I'm
another
remote too. I'm not with him in the studio, so that's why.
right. Another question here from David Humrich. So if BK is found not guilty, does he sue, the news, mainstream media, law and crime? I mean, that would be an interesting situation. What do you think about it?
Yes, I think he has a case, especially against all the people that, and Ann Taylor too. I saw someone say that she threatened, Nancy Grace threatened Ann Taylor physical bodily harm or something like that, and I hadn't
Yes,
heard about that before. So
she did.
yeah, they're gonna
Yeah,
have
that's
it. Not they're
outrageous.
both gonna cases, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, that's just outrageous. I don't know, he would have to, like I said, I think he would have some serious grounds to go after some of these people. And I've already said it before. I'm going to say it again publicly. I am volunteering to write the book, Brian. If you want to get a hold of me,
Yeah, that'd be
Murder
great.
Metal
Huh?
Mayhem. I mean, what better guy to write your book than Pete from Murder Metal Mayhem. So I'm
There you
just
go.
throwing it out there. You know, I'm an author.
We had the
If you-
connection with his professor, right? Too.
That's
So it's not
right.
like you.
I interviewed Dr. Catherine Ramsland twice for the Murder Metal Mayhem podcast, and she was his professor at DeSales. So yeah, that's definitely a little bit of a tie there. I look in here at the chat, Blahgergirl, we're at 396 people in the chat.
Fantastic.
So that's awesome.
Thanks, guys.
I'm trying to kind of watch, but it's tough because I was looking at this through YouTube and it was like on a delay. So I was like talking to you, but I'm trying to read those questions and it was weird. So
we'll get better at this, I promise. It was just our first time. So.
I know, and I appreciate it. I see Carl Thomas. He's always in the chat or in the comment section. Sure. Carl is awesome. And I'm trying to read his question. Banfield incident is a diversion from the activities on King Road and Sigma Chi. That's a great question. Carl asks the best questions, but
yes.
What do you think, Blahgergirl? We did a True Crime Deep Cuts about this, but
we did.
Was it a diversion of the cops, or were the cops the diversion to make sure nobody went over by the house?
Oh, that's a good question. Either or.
It's like honestly, the chicken and the egg, right?
Because you could think, are they involved? They're involved. They're trying to make sure no one goes over there so it could be completed. If they're not involved, then what are they doing on a Banfield in an unmarked car, not in proper uniform, stopping kids that don't even look like they're drunk and giving them hefty fines that are later dismissed for what? And parked right next to where Maddie's jacket was found.
Right.
Like, it doesn't make any sense.
When we did that True Crime Deep Cuts, and if you guys didn't watch that, it's on the playlist on the channel. I've done 5 of them so far. 2 of them or 3 of them were with Blahgergirl. I can't remember, losing count. 3. And so that was one we did, and on the frat boys and stuff, but we got into the Banfield. But I think, and I know we brought this up in that video, that the fact that that body cam starts at about the time, it's like 2:50 something. And in my opinion, this happened right after the last call to Jack Decor, 2:52 a.m. And those 4 people are running across the Banfield from the house toward the frats at 3:12. And if you do the math, that's like 20 minutes. And what did that 4chan post say, Blahgergirl, about the time?
That it took 19 minutes total?
19 minutes. Isn't that convenient that they were there on the Banfield at the time that I think the murders happened with Kaylee and Maddie? I do think that they were done at separate times. We can get into that, but that kind of lays that groundwork. But I'm kind of working on a new theory about it, but go ahead.
Sorry, if you see me, my eye, I have something in my eye. That's why I'm over here. No, but the 4 that you see, I believe it's 4. Some people said it was 5 people walking by the light that's in their body cam footage. Why were they stopping these kids, but they don't stop those 4?
Right.
I want to know why, because I could see them. They're walking in front of that light. So they're not that far from these officers and where they're standing. And they could have easily held them and said, hey, get over here. Like they did the 3 boys, right? So, but it's like they don't do that. Why? So that to me was like, all right, okay, you have 3 people here that don't even look like they're intoxicated. They're not even walking, like they're not causing a havoc, like they're not drunk in public or anything like that, even if they were drinking.
It's absurd. I mean, I've seen, believe me, I played in bands for 20-something years. I've seen people drunk. I've seen people acting the fool when they're intoxicated many a times, okay? And those 3 kids were not doing anything at all to warrant them being stopped. I think that was a total ruse because, as we know, the 911 call came in at 3 a.m. or 3:01, and they were there at 2:52 or 2:53 or whatever it was. So why were they there responding to a 911 call before the 911 call was made? I mean, that makes absolutely no sense.
I don't know.
And who in the world on a college campus would be calling in to 911 over 3 kids walking home from a party that, even if they were drunk, nobody's calling 911. We know that if 4 people are butchered in your house, they're not calling 911. So why in the
Clearly.
world would you call 911 against these 3 guys walking across Banfield?
I mean, we've talked about this. They say that this house was situated in like a bowl, so everything echoed. The house didn't have insulation. You talked upon that for your professional opinion when the house
Right,
was torn down. You're going to hear stuff. They've called constantly about noise complaints, but the night that 4 people are brutally murdered, they don't call at all.
right.
It's like, okay. And then, but they call with the noise. Who is calling? There's got
I
to be
know,
records of these calls. I want to know
I
who
know.
is this person calling on these kids. Why are you living next to a college house? Like,
Right,
if you don't like
exactly.
noise, it doesn't make any sense to
Exactly. It
me.
doesn't make any sense. So they're calling 911 over somebody playing some, bro country too loud, which I would have called at any volume there. I can't stand that stuff, but that's another point for another day. But they're calling for 3 kids walking across a field,
Right.
but they're not
That's
calling
the
for much more serious matters, like in the case of the Idaho 4, and not just that one, but it's just really weird. I mean, that just this whole place, like I said, it's like something out of a fictional story. I get the feeling that at some point this is almost going to be like a Truman Show type thing, where
Mhm.
this
Yeah.
was all, or a Black Mirror episode where everybody's
Oh,
going to be
geez.
like, ha ha, we were just play acting to prove a point of how the public can get behind vilifying a completely innocent person into being this butcher of 4 college kids. That's almost seems like what this is. And they're
Yeah.
just staging all these, because the Banfield, we talked about, it seems really weird. Saeed coming out of nowhere with the beers
Yeah.
in his hand.
You
Like,
heard my
what was
you
up
heard
with
my
that?
reaction on our video. I was like, "Whoa, where did you come from?"
Right, right. And we talked about the bushy
Because he just pops
eyebrows
out of
thing.
nowhere like a daisy in the snow.
Yeah, and it looked like he had some kind of costume on. His eyebrows were like crazy bushy. So it was like this out of nowhere, like he was like just running from the house and like, oh shit, there's a cop here. I don't know. I mean, it was really weird because the cops certainly seem like they're pretty cool. It almost seemed like they were the lookouts. I do think that there was quite an orchestration of people involved. I know that that flies in the face of Occam's razor, and the most simplest explanation is usually the right explanation, but I don't think that's the case here. I think this was like a Julius Caesar type thing where you had an entire cast of people all playing roles to orchestrate this. It's sick. It's sick
It
and it's
is.
twisted. It really is.
You're frozen on my end, and so am I, but I'm just gonna keep talking. I apologize, guys, again for my signal. It's not the best on StreamYard. We're better when we do Zoom, but
Yeah.
I'm just gonna keep moving along. I definitely wanted to talk about there was an interview that the Gongalveses did, and I thought it was just the Chapin family that were sending their kids there still. But Steve himself said that they had, oh, we have a kid still going there. And I'm
The
like,
son, I
whoa.
think. Yeah.
Yes.
I
And
don't
it's like,
get it.
wait a minute. Why? Why would you send your kids to a
I
school
can't
where
imagine it.
your kids got brutally murdered? I don't understand. Please make sense. Help me make sense of this. I don't understand it.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. I couldn't imagine sending my kids back to that school after what happened to their loved ones. I mean, that's just I would wanna be on the opposite end of the country in somewhere else other than there. I just don't understand it. I really don't. So
Right.
I don't get it at all. I'm in complete agreement with you there. But, yeah, that whole Chapin situation is very strange. I've been kinda looking into them. I know that, that's not a very popular thing to go into the family stuff, but, I mean, it's tough. I
Yeah,
know I've
but
talked about this with, like, the girls and, some of the things that have been alleged, with the, potential drug sales or whether it be, some, website stuff, that sort of thing, the OnlyFans, whatever. I'm not
Right.
judging, but these people were not like out of a Hardy Boys or a Nancy Drew book, these were people that were normal, humans, adults, that we all do things that maybe we're not proud of later on in life. So whatever the case may be, but I think it's important to bring it up because obviously what they were doing is probably what caused this to happen. Don't you
Uh-oh.
agree with that?
Oh, sorry. Something. Okay, there it goes. It refreshed. Can you see me or no? Not yet.
I could see you, but you're froze, but I can hear you just fine.
Let me see.
But I don't understand
Now
what
started again.
I don't understand what the deal is with that. I really don't. I just it just seems like I said, like something out of a crazy story. It just doesn't make any sense with what's going on here. I
No.
don't know. Everything about this is just
Yeah,
very strange,
I'm gonna turn my camera off and try to turn it back on. I don't know what happened, but I'm here, guys. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, no problem. I'll just
Okay.
keep talking here.
Yeah, keep going. I'm with you.
So
Um,
I wanted to talk about the Grub Truck. I know that you and I are going to be doing a true crime deep cuts on this, Blogger Girl. A lot of people were asking for this in the comment section when I did some stuff about Hayden Villa over there at the Grub Truck. And wow, that one got a lot of views, and a lot of you guys were asking about it. So I wanted to
right.
go ahead and do a true crime deep cuts, and Blogger Girl, you're going to do that one with me.
Yes.
And just again, a very strange situation there at the Grub Truck. So why don't you kind of paint the picture, like they're walking and there's that conversation with Jack and all of that.
Yeah. Well, they caught that. Well, what bothers me is that I don't know if they um canvassed the area properly. Because why is it that Kaylee's sister's the one who found the grub truck photo or video, and then some other business owners saw the video of them walking down the street? I don't
Right,
understand why that the law enforcement said they did a canvas. They even put a map out during one of their press conferences saying where they got the footage from around the area, but yet
right.
you don't you don't get the grub truck that's literally in that vicinity. I don't understand.
It does seem very strange, especially since it seemed like such an important part of the fabric of the town. I mean, I could see that would be a cool hangout spot, right? They were all
Right.
hanging out there, but what's weird is, like you said, Kaylee's sister, Olivia, was the one that got the Grub Truck feed.
Right.
Found out that they broadcast it on Twitch, was it? And was
Yes,
smart
Twitch.
enough to grab it, and get a hold of it. Because boy, what a piece of evidence that is. I know when I first watched it. So if you're watching this and you're like, I've watched some of that, I don't get it. Boy, there's some really good content. I've mentioned her before. Huda London did some really good work on the Grub Truck. Bubbly Waters has done some good work on the Grub Truck. I know neither of those channels is for everybody, just like I'm not for everybody.
Right.
But they did some really good analysis, and it definitely prompted me to want to do some of my own. But it just seems really weird. Like everybody there seemed to be keeping an eye on those girls. What did you think about that?
Yes, that's what this Huda one, she was basically alluding that they were all kind of watching her, all in on it. And I was like, if
Right,
that's true, that's really sad. But I don't know. She talked about like people were watching the same thing on the video, but I don't we'd have to watch that again because I don't necessarily see that. I know they're looking at their phone, and then they even alluded to like Saeed like looking at something on his phone when he was stopped
right,
by the police. So, and that's Bushy Eyebrow Boy, if you're wondering who that is.
right,
Um,
right.
but like, the fact that they might have been watching, I mean, that's sick in my mind. I don't know. I'm really praying that that's not true because
That's
that is just
beyond
heinous.
sick. That's
That's
beyond
heinous.
sick. And Huda London is the only other one that I've heard. I'm sure that, there's a lot of the true crime creators I don't watch just because there's not enough time in the day. I watch a
Right.
ton of this stuff, but I can't watch all of it. All I'm saying is from what I have seen, Huda London and Bubbly Waters are the only other two people that take the live streaming thing as serious as I do. I said it before I heard any of them, and then I heard
Yeah.
their stuff, and I know Huda was doing it before me. I just hadn't heard it yet. I know everybody gets all crazy on the comments like, "Oh, I heard this before on this channel." Well, I can't watch all this stuff, and it's crazy. So I believe that it was live streamed, but it's very disturbing. And people got really hung up when I did the video about the 400 people, and I
Right.
was not saying 400 people watched this on a live stream, but of the 400 people, you've got neighbors, witnesses, coworkers, experts, and all of that. And of that, people at the Sigma Chi party, maybe.
Yeah.
Then you've maybe there's only 40 or 50 of them that watch this thing. But I guarantee you that's what they did. I mean, think about it. Look what we're doing.
Mhm.
I'm using a laptop and a microphone, and we're doing this. So you mean to tell me these kids couldn't have done something like that with a GoPro or a phone? I'm not buying it.
Exactly.
I think they streamed it to
Yeah,
themselves.
it's definitely possible.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the rituals and the things that the frats do. I
Yeah.
know we talked about this in that
It's
True
creepy.
Crime Deep Cuts. It's some creepy stuff. So you mean to tell me this is out of bounds? I'm not buying it. I think that they're sick enough to really go for this sort of thing. We're at
Yeah. I hope
458 in the chat, by
Oh,
the way,
fantastic.
Blahgergirl.
I don't know if you
You
guys
guys
can
are
see me.
awesome.
I see a black box on my end, so if you see me, cool.
I
But
see you froze. I can hear you. I know a lot of these
okay.
lives I've seen where people use avatars, so we'll just pretend that you're using an
Oh, okay, I'm an
avatar.
avatar.
So
Okay,
you're
cool.
okay, but you're here and appreciate it. But yeah, all you guys, I mean, really appreciate it. This is just super cool. We're an hour and 12 minutes into this. We're going to go for 2 hours. As I mentioned before, I'm going to have some prizes. I got a Murder Metal Mayhem t-shirt I'm going to give away. I'm going to give away a copy of my Deeper Than Dead novel. I got some Murder Metal Mayhem die cut stickers. Now you're going to be driving through your neighborhood with a Murder Metal Mayhem sticker on your back window. I can't say that might not get you pulled over. I don't know, but you don't know. The cop might be a total Murder Metal Mayhem fan and might be like, hell yeah, and give you a break and not give you a ticket. I don't know.
Right. You never
And
know.
I showed this off before, but I know not everybody was on the stream at the very beginning. But I got this Murder Metal Mayhem forearm here. And whenever I do appearances, I bring it with me. And I get so many people that like weird out about it. And kids want to pick it up and I take their pictures with it and stuff. It's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
someone said put it out as a joke, put it out your trunk.
Yeah, right. No, this thing
Um,
is worth quite a bit of money. The guy that makes this or made this for me is Spellbound Effects and Art out of Miami, but Tony Campagna, he does escape rooms. He did the Saw escape room in Vegas. He's done some pretty big stuff. So he
pretty
makes
cool.
those on his website. Yeah, so that was cool. I got that right at the beginning of starting Murder Metal Mayhem in 2018 with the podcast. So yeah, I got a lot of cool things here. I'm getting ready to do a studio walkthrough video that I'm
Okay.
going to do so everybody can see this, because all you're seeing is one part of one wall and the masks. I rotate them around. Of course, this episode, I like the Gacy one here over my shoulder. The guy next to Gacy, of course, H.H. Holmes, the murder castle up in Chicago. And then over here, Eileen Warnos down there in Florida. So I've got
Mm.
like 12 of these masks and I've been rotating them around. And a lot of people in the comments say, oh, which mask is that? Or, oh, I've never seen that one before. So
Yeah.
yeah, I got a lot of weird stuff here in Horns High. But yeah, I just want to say thanks, all you guys showing up in the chat here. That's just super cool. But and then going on with this Grub Truck conversation. So we've got
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
weird, like everybody kind of watching. You had some of the sorority girls were there, right?
Right.
Molly Gray. You had Liz Katovich, and
Uh-huh.
those two had that weird Venmo payment the day before. Remember that? Molly Gray sent Liz a Venmo payment for something, and the memo said 3:30 a.m. That was the day before this happened. What the heck was that? What do you think, Blogger Girl?
Their reaction to Kaylee was weird. Those are the two that walked by her, right? Or one of them stopped, hugged her, the other one kept walking. Is that correct?
There was a group of them. There wasn't just those two, but there was a group of them totally snubbing her. I mean, it was weird. Like
Absolutely.
these were like her freaking sorority sisters. Like they acted like she was the plague, you know?
Yeah, it's bizarre because usually, like, it's like I told you about my instance where they didn't want
Yeah,
my friend talking to me because she was part of a sorority. So it's weird to me that your sorority sisters are like giving you that cold shoulder. Like, what?
right.
Isn't that the whole point of this? You're supposed to be like have each other's backs and be able to talk, but go figure.
Yeah, I
Uh,
just think that there's something to this, but the sorority sisters are kind of watching them. You had Joe Vito there as a very strange character. And was one thing my wife and I were watching, and I did want to say thank you to my beautiful wife Jenny for helping on the
yeah, thank
moderator
you.
side of this. So haven't seen any craziness, but I'm when this is over, I'm sure if there was any, she'll let me know. So thank you, Jenny, for doing this.
She's
But
kicking him out.
she is, she is. But yeah, I mean, Joe Vito does this weird thing. If you watch the Grub Truck, he has I think, a Coke can in his hand, and he puts the Coke can behind his back. But it's very odd. It doesn't seem like it's a natural thing. It's not like he was scratching his back or something like that. It almost looks like a signal, like he was trying to let somebody know that something was going on. I don't know, but he just puts this Coke can behind his back and he holds it there for a few seconds, and it looks like a signal. And he's talking on I'm guessing an Apple Watch or something like that. There's a lot of stuff going on in that Grub Truck. So we're going to do a deep cuts on it. It's going to be really cool. But the creepiest part of it, Blogger Girl, is after Kaylee and Maddie leave, because what time did they leave? It was like 1:45 or something like that.
Yeah, because they got back at 156.
1:56 is what Lisa said, or Olivia says in the
I think 152.
156 was when supposedly the private driver brought him back. But so after they leave, then you had, um, so that would have been, they're back home at 1:56, but at 2 o'clock or so is when the sorority sister group that was there at the Grub Truck kind of circle around, and they're all looking at their phones. And then several of them are chanting Xana. And it's like, what is that
Yeah.
about? That's why I do think that this was live streamed.
Wasn't
I
there a where, like, that Joe looks off to the side of the truck or something, and they're pointing at something? Do you remember that part? Where he kinda looks, onto the side of the truck, that bigger guy that had the hat and the, like,
Joe
beige
Vito,
jacket?
yeah.
Yeah. He kinda, like,
I'm not
looks to see
sure
what they're
about that.
yelling at one point in the footage. So we're gonna look at that. We're gonna take a probably a deeper look at
Yeah,
that on our true crime deep cuts, but
we are. We're just giving you a little tease here, but the whole Xana chanting thing. Now that's why I think
that's a good point.
that's why I do think that Xana and Ethan were attacked just after 2 o'clock when they're chanting. All that's going on. And then I think that uh, Kaylee and Maddie were were attacked after they got back, and I don't think that they were brought directly home. We talked about Maddie's jacket down there in Taylor Avenue. I think there was some stuff that happened outside. What do you think? I mean, how did Maddie's jacket end up in those weeds off of Taylor Avenue?
Well, we don't know if it's hers, right? I mean, it could be, but it definitely looked like it. I mean, I think they even compared like a white tag that was seen
Right.
on the side of it to this tag that's seen in the Grub Truck photo on it.
Right.
So it definitely looks suspicious, which is why I don't understand why they didn't collect it. And there was like a can or something next to it that was a piece of trash that also should have been collected because there could have been DNA on that as well.
Right. Right.
But they didn't do either of those. And then the private driver, I heard very early on that this was like an Uber driver, and then there's a private driver, and then there was like a Sigma Chi specifically. What is this? I'm so confused.
I don't
But
know, but I think, I mean, I've heard some people say they were picked up in a red Mustang, because there's that red Mustang that was wrecked a couple of blocks from the house. You remember those video of the people in like Tyvek suits processing this
mhm.
red Mustang on the side of the road that was like abandoned.
Oh,
So that's
interesting.
certainly very suspicious, but
Yeah.
I've heard that. And then I've also heard, there was in the Idaho PCA, his name was he well, which one? There was one where the private driver was name was redacted, and then in the other, it was Eric Grower, but there is no Eric Grower. So everybody figured it was Eric Gower, who
Gower.
did
Yeah.
provide rides to the college
That's
kids,
weird.
which is super weird. I
I
mean,
mean, he's a
this
he's a
guy's a
married man.
married man. His
Yeah.
wife was getting ready to have a baby. I mean,
And
seriously,
she's a
dude?
part of the Moscow Police
Yeah.
Department.
Gee, isn't that surprising that somehow or
Convenient.
another he's never really considered much of a suspect when he was the person that most likely was the last person to see him alive?
Yeah. And then we don't really hear much about it. Convenient.
We don't. And then you go to the guy's Pinterest page and he's got all these like zombie apocalypse swords, a bat shetty with a bat that was made to be a machete. I mean, some horrifying stuff. I could only imagine if Brian Koberger had a Pinterest page that looked like that.
Yeah.
If they're
But he
going nuts over the sun or the moon and the stars, what in the world would the mainstream media and Ashley Banfield do with the bat shetty? Oh my
I
God.
still stand by that, guys. I think that the Moon and Stars was planted to see how the media was gonna handle verbiage like that and run with it, and I think that now they took the bait. Taylor put that out there and they took the bait because they're so focused on, "Oh my god, he was driving around, he's got pictures of the night sky and the moons and the stars and all that." It's like, you're not even looking at what he's saying and who he's saying is gonna come up to supposedly, you know, back him up and prove that. Um, so I liked his CV. I thought it was pretty impressive. So we'll see what he actually pulls onto the stand as evidence. That'll be
Right.
very interesting. And then the fact that they haven't given everything, that still weirds me out that we're 2 years later and they're still missing things. So that's a
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah. I've got
So
a few questions here, Blogger Girl,
okay.
looking at some. We're getting a lot of questions. So thanks, guys.
Yeah.
I see Amy Lee asks, how reliable was the information you gave with Nick, or she must be Mick, about the DNA? What she's referring to is that True Crime Deep Cuts I just put out on the crime scene investigation and
Mhm.
the DNA analysis, which, I talked with Mick, who is a former Australian federal police officer, which is the equivalent of like our FBI. And the
Okay.
guy's processed hundreds of crime scenes, murders, and all sorts of stuff. And we talked a lot about this DNA evidence, and I don't want to get too in the weeds with it. Definitely like you to check that episode out. It just came out Friday, but it's an hour and 15 minutes, but it's packed full of stuff. We talk about all the things that you guys have been asking about, how this scene was processed, how it may have been contaminated, the cleanup, all of that stuff. Mick and I get into it. He's very candid about it. He's got a lot of really good information. But to be simple about it, when DNA is collected, if there's less than 500 picograms of DNA, that's considered scientifically inaccurate, that they can't come up with scientifically accurate results. Now,
Interesting.
Mick was talking about 200 to 300 is like with technology, like cutting edge, like stuff he was using. They could maybe go that low, but in this case, there were 90. 18% of the required 500 to be scientifically accurate. So I saw a couple of people in the chat. I'm not going to call you out by name saying BK's guilty. I don't know how in the world you could say that when the only evidence they got is a couple of skin cells on a knife sheath that was very conveniently planted, I believe, on the scene. I mean, I don't know
Right.
how it could have been real and not covered in bodily fluids on that bed. It makes zero sense. Zero.
It's too little of an amount, and then they could only test it once, which that shows you how little of
Right.
DNA was on it. And I
It
just
has
don't
to be
see
repeated.
how could you kill 4
Our,
people and only leave 1 cell of DNA?
yeah, I mean, the US military does not use touch DNA. The Australian government does not use touch DNA. It's looked
No.
at kind of like a lie detector test.
Right? Yeah.
It's a tool, but it's not supposed to be evidence. But see where they're getting slick in this case, which is just totally bogus, is what they're trying to pull is they use this IgG, and we get into this in that True Crime Deep Cuts with Mick, how that that IgG stuff works, but they used the IgG to quote unquote put the Koberger family on their radar. Then they test the father's DNA in Pennsylvania to say that the father was he was the father of the person
Right.
that left the skin cells on the sheath. And then they arrest him, they swab him, they confirm that he's the guy that left the skin cells on the sheath. But then when they're called out on the IgG, they say, well, wait a minute, we don't need the IgG. We're not going to use it because we've got the DNA to link him to the sheath. That is like some kind of like sleight of hand
a backwards way of doing things.
At like a carnival when you're getting ripped off, right? To put $5 on guessing which coconut has the ping pong ball. It's ridiculous, but that's the kind of nonsense that they're pulling. So that was a good question, Amy. I did want to
that's great. Don't worry, Colin, we're going to be posting it later for you to watch. She said I'm way late, someone in the chat. So if you're coming, you're just joining us, Pete's going to post it so you guys can watch it on replay. So don't feel like you're missing out completely if you were busy and just joining us.
Yeah. Snickers here asked a question. Snickers, yeah.
I like the name.
I'm getting kind of hungry, so thanks for that.
I know.
Why did BK return to the murder location by car the next morning at 9 a.m., way before the 911 call? I know we kind of talked about this, but the phone pinging, I don't think is accurate enough.
It wasn't his car that will look, at least we haven't seen footage of his car coming back at 9 a.m. the next morning. They're saying that the cell phone pinged the next morning. The cell phone can ping up to 20 miles away. He's only less than 20 from Pullman, right? So it could ping from his apartment.
9 miles. So he could have been in his apartment. And remember, the PCA said that one of the pings that they got was him at his apartment or in Pullman. So they even in their own PCA said that happened. So how does that not discredit the rest of it? I mean, that's the most ridiculous thing.
Like you're offering evidence for something to be discredited in the same document as the potential evidence. Anyway,
like I said, it's like the Bad News Bears trying to do a crime scene investigation. So
well, he went to Walmart that was in the area too, and so like that could be a triangulation from that as well.
Mad Greek. He could have banked there. I mean, 12 times in 4 months, that's really not that many times. And if you live in a Twin City type environment, which I do, you're frequently going back and forth. You don't even think about it. It's just like one big town. And that's what this basically was like. So that whole 12 times in the 4 months, I don't put any
It could be explained
credence
away. We're
in it.
not saying it's not true, but there's an
Right.
explanation that we're coming up for that. And then the
Yeah.
knife sheath, same thing. So these things
Mhm.
are being explained away one by one by one. And then now you're having experts coming in and testifying, putting their, reputations on the line to now say, like, hey, we are backing what he's saying up with X, Y, and Z.
Right.
And don't take our word for it. Here's the evidence. So now I'm curious to see what that evidence is. And so that's going to be very interesting. We'll keep tabs on it. We'll keep watching it. I believe the next one is May 14th is
I think
the
that's right.
motion to compel hearing. I believe they're keeping that. They didn't change that date, so that should be the next one at 1:30.
Right. Right. I got one here from Dean A, says, "What proof is there that BK is vegan?" I think that's been pretty established. I mean, he's getting a
They
vegan diet at the jail, so
in the prison, yeah, they said something about that they had to accommodate, and at first they weren't gonna do it or something like that, and he had to get special accommodation for that.
right.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
so that as far as I know, that's been pretty much confirmed by the fact that he, his, he's the one that said he was vegan and they're giving him that diet there. I know Steve Gonzalez had a lot of issues with that. Looking here, see any other questions?
Well, they don't like that he's not wearing a jumpsuit in court, that he's wearing an actual suit. They think that
Oh
if
yeah,
he's an accused murderer, he should, at least until the trial, have to wear, like, shackles in a suit, and I'm like, I'm more worried about what's coming up on the stand.
right,
So, that's what I'm listening to. I could care less what he's wearing, but I can understand how
right.
parents would be like, "What the
Yeah,
hell is this accused murder of my child being able to have accommodations
right,
like that?" And there's no other cases where they've seen where, he originally was wearing the orange.
right.
And I think that was in Pennsylvania, though, but when he
I
got
think
back
you're
to
right.
Idaho, I think it changed. So, um, but I'm more worried about what's gonna get him off. If I was more concerned about, if I really truly thought he was the murderer, I'd be worried about what's going on the stand and what the prosecution's saying and doing, like, what's been happening. I'd be worried about that, and the
Right,
delay and all that. I'd be worried about things like that instead of what he's wearing, but
right.
I
I see another one here from the Richard, who's a member here, the Horns
yeah,
High
I've seen
member.
him a
So
few times.
thanks,
That's cool.
Richard. Yeah, he says, do we think that with the police or law enforcement, it's incompetence, corruption, or maybe a little of both? Blogger girl, what do you think?
I think, depending on the person, because like, for example, if it's a younger police officer like Payne, it could be just lack of know-how, but he's in the military. He should know better with certain
He
things.
was an
Like,
MP. He was an MP in the military. I don't know what kind of, crimes, I was in the army, but thankfully I never dealt with the
yeah,
MPs, but so I
thankfully.
mean they're police. So I mean, I don't know if he was involved in any murders or anything like that, but we know that he sure as hell wasn't in Moscow because I think that they had said that it was what 7 years or something like that. But of
Mhm.
course, the way they categorize accidents there really were a few murders. If you look at Hudson Lindau
Yeah,
and some
no.
of that, that's a whole story for another day.
Yeah, I don't think that those supposedly accidental deaths were accidental. I think they were hazing gone wrong,
Right.
and they don't want that, remember their precious university, their precious reputation of these sororities and fraternities and everything like that, and their rush week, like we've heard Steve Gongalves say that multiple times. We don't wanna ruin your rush. So, I think that that's what that's related to. They had to, like, somehow hush that up. Because
Right.
if they all of a sudden they're getting these murders one after the other, they're going to be investigated. It's going to come out more. But now that these four were brutally murdered like this, it brought a huge limelight to this
Right.
town. And now they're screwed because a lot of the stuff that maybe was swept under the rug is coming out now. And
Yeah.
we're all watching, not just me, not just you, everyone in our chat around the world. This is worldwide being watched. So they're
It's a
kind of
big deal.
screwed now.
Yeah, they really I mean, if they truly I mean, its question is, was it incompetence or corruption? I think it's a little of both.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine, and, I've said this I don't even know how many times, come from a law enforcement You know, my dad was in that field. Friends have been in that field currently still. I'm the last person that wants to sit here and throw them under the bus, but my gosh, I mean, in this case, they have done themselves absolutely no favors. And it's just like one incompetent act after another. And when I met with Mick or interviewed Mick for that episode I've been referring to, he backed it up. I mean, I didn't coordinate this with him. All I knew is that I had done an interview with Mick and he talked about a DNA scandal going on in Queensland, Australia, where there's a lab that's like the lab in the entire country is now been busted for a bunch of nonsense with people, you know, not reading samples correctly and misinterpreting data. Thousands of cases may be affected by this. When he brought that up, I thought that's crazy because at that time, I was trying to understand this IgG and the DNA and the Idaho 4, and it was very confusing to me. And when he brought this up in an interview, I thought this would be a great thing to talk about in a True Crime Deep Cuts and get into that with him. And then I saw that then was right after that, Colorado here in the US, the Colorado State Lab going through a huge drama, same type of thing, a 30-year career employee and analyst found to be fudging numbers and playing all sorts of games. So it's like, is this DNA stuff quite the pinnacle of evidence that they claim? And so many of the guilters think that it is. And I'm not trying to say that, you know, we've said it's before that Brian is not guilty. I just don't know. I haven't seen all the evidence to make that decision. But to say he's guilty based on that knife sheath DNA, and you'll hear it if you listen to Mick. I mean, he's an Australian, so he's got no skin in the game, pun intended. So he was very, very forthcoming about what he thought about it. And I definitely think you guys need to check it out because, you know, Richard's question is a good one. Was it incompetence or was it corruption? I think it was probably a little bit of both. What do you think, Blahgergirl?
I think that yes, I think it's both. I think there's corruption, absolutely. That's not even a doubt in my mind. But as far as like, is it intentional corruption? I mean, I personally think so, but it also could just be their lack of experience and not handling the scene and the whole investigation properly. And now it's causing a lot of problems. So, but we're almost at the 20 more minute mark. Just wanted to keep you a heads up on that. I didn't know if we had any other questions.
Yeah, I've been checking. I knew thankfully with StreamYard it's got a little clock here. So that solved my question earlier about the clock. Again, we really appreciate you guys. We're at 456 still. 448. So it's going up, which is really
great,
fantastic.
Guys. If you have any questions, really cool. Can you tell them how that works? Pete, if they don't know how to do that.
You go up to the top of the chat where it says top chat, there's a pull down menu where you can ask your questions there. Then this way they're all in one place. So I'm going to look here to see if there's any other questions that jump out. There's several, and I wish I could read them all, but some of them have been things we've already talked about. So it looks like, see here, somebody said it just says home, so it doesn't say any other name than that. Xana's coach had 13 players the same month as the murder, being accused of harassment. I'm not quite sure what that means. Sorry, I'm trying to just read this on the fly. I did see somebody here commented, our friend Old Dirty South, saying that he was known to be a steroid user. I know we talked about in that Deep Cuts. What do you think about that? You still think he was doing that?
Yes. I think those 4chans are real. I think that there's merit to that. But there's a lot of things. I mean, the crazy part about this case is that I would love to be able to play like check, that doesn't make sense. We've proven that out. Let's cross that off the list. That's not a possibility, right?
Right.
But from Jack Showalter to Kaylee's ex-boyfriend to Brian Koberger. Brian Koberger is the only one that I'm like starting to check off those boxes going, this isn't making sense to me.
Right.
The more
The only guy
coming
that
out.
didn't leave, the only guy that didn't leave town.
Yeah.
Everybody
Exactly.
else whisking themselves away to Africa, Spain, all over the place. Real nice. You know, everybody's on vacation. Here's this guy. He stays around for a month. I mean, every other person in this story left but him. I mean, that's just, I don't know. He did everything that you would expect him not to do, you know, if he was the guy that did this.
If he was guilty. Yeah.
Right. So it's just really weird.
But like, anyway, you got all these people. I mean, we've gone through it. The Sigma Chi, even the sorority people. I mean, you got Emma and Demetrius. You have the law enforcement. I mean, if you go on all these people, I've never been able to be like, nope, that's not true. Cross them out. Every one of them still is a possibility in my mind. But the 4chan, when I read that, there's other 4chans that I didn't cover on my channel personally because they're pretty graphic and I was not comfortable repeating that verbiage on my channel. But the basic one that we went over, that one makes sense to me. I mean, it's like, did they look into these kids fully? So, oh, hey, something popped up.
I just figured out how to do it.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
My wife's probably going to hit me over the head because I didn't realize I could do this from StreamYard. So
we're learning, guys. So bear with us. Yes.
We hope you guys appreciate that we're doing this. We're at 444 people here. That's really awesome.
That's awesome.
I just hovered over a comment and it gave me the option to put it up here. So I'm sorry. We know now next time. Val B, what do you think about this one?
Cops don't let you have cops don't let you have your hands in your pants. No cell phone either, guy. I'm not that kept looking off towards the house.
The Grub Truck. Those guys all got their hands in their pants. That's a great comment because cops are usually, that's the last thing they want you to do. And you always hear that. I watch a lot of the DUI stops and stuff. They're always like, get your hands out of your pockets, you know?
Yeah. Well, let me see your hands.
And they don't say that.
Let me see your hands.
They don't say that. And those guys get their hands in their pockets the whole time. So that's a good one. Here's another good one here. From Moonvale, Green, old Scott Green. Very sus. I mean, this guy.
Thank you, Winchell, for the super sticker.
Thank you very much. No, I'm glad you said that. So this guy, you know, is right in the middle of everything. I mean, I don't know, you know, how it didn't even happen on the campus, but yet this guy's, you know, going to all the meetings.
That's weird to me.
Very strange.
Yeah, and then he's like, there's a gag order and he's allowed to write a book that talks about this case. Okay. But the parents themselves are like gagged to a certain extent. Well, actually, I don't think they are, but their attorney is. But still, I mean, that's an extension of them. So, it's bizarre to me that he's got so much power and, you know, he's a billionaire. I didn't know that when I was looking into him. I was like, whoa, what are you doing at a university then? If you have all this money, why do you need to work? And then it's like, then they do that whole backward deal with the University of Phoenix. And how they wouldn't allow other people to put in bids for the school. They kind of did it. They were being investigated for that because they weren't allowing it to be like an open bid process. It was kind of done behind the scenes and kind of like we're for sure going to give it to you type of situation. Very, very bizarre. And the fact that his house is direct eyesight line to the 1122 home. It's his old childhood home. I mean, there's a lot with that man that is very suspicious. The fact that he's super involved. No.
Definitely.
No, I don't like him.
Here's another good one. We were just talking about these characters over there, Sigma Chi, old David Loach and David Baracoa need to be interviewed. They were lawyered up, and I am still blown away at how a crime of this magnitude, I don't care if you're lawyered up or not. I think the problem is they don't have anything concrete to be able to legitimately bring them in. And if they're lawyered up, of course, the lawyer's going to know that. So that's my guess of why they're not being made. I mean, I've heard they're both in Spain. Baracoa has family over there. took a job over there, and I had heard, the last thing I had heard was David Loach was there as well. So that's
Well, yeah,
kind
of
of
course they're gonna
interesting.
leave the States.
Right.
They're gonna bounce
And I
as quickly
heard,
as they
you know
can.
who else is over there, according to somebody in the comments on one of
Hmm.
my videos, said that Jake Schreiger, Maddie's boyfriend, also lives in Spain.
Oh,
So
wow.
how weird is
He's
that?
he's interesting, and I know you said you couldn't find too much on him, but the fact
I
that, like,
did
he
find
mentioned
some stuff. I'm getting
you
ready
did?
to do a follow-up. I
Oh,
had quite a
good.
few people comment and email me stuff. So those of you that did that, thank you. I really
Yes,
appreciate it.
and we had
But
a
I'm doing a
we ha
follow-up.
we had something come in from a Susan, I believe. I saw something come in. I can't see it anymore, but let
Oh,
me see.
okay.
Oh,
Let
here it
me
is. Touch DNA only viable for 12 hours. Don't think it was processed in time. It's even less than that, isn't it? It's not even like 12. It's like 4 or something. It depends on what type of conduit it's on, right? So like if it's brass or
yes.
something like that, it can only last for so many
Yes.
hours.
I got into this heavy with Mick, and here's the deal. With brass, and everything I've read and heard said that button snap on a K-bar is
It's brass.
brass. I was in the
Okay.
Army, so we didn't use K-bars, but this is what I've heard. So brass is an interesting metal because a lot of coins are made with similar copper and things like that that resist bacteria. He said if they didn't, then all our change would give people passing diseases back and forth. So our coins are made to resist bacteria. So when you've got
Interesting. Okay.
DNA on something that's based in that sort of a metal, it's going to resist the DNA. It's not going to last. Now,
Okay.
the other channels that I've seen cover this, they refer to a study, and the study that I read talks about fish DNA. They didn't use human DNA, I'm assuming for some sort of ethical reason.
Okay.
Nonetheless, they used fish DNA, and the fish DNA on brass didn't last more than 3 hours. So if
Wow.
you're
See.
saying 3 hours, then how in the world is that DNA on that sheath not planted? Because if these crimes happened at 4 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah.
Payne didn't roll out of bed or the church social or wherever the hell he was until 4 p.m. That's 12 hours, as Susan correctly points out. There's no way in hell that that's real. I won't believe it.
Wow. See, it's
So,
not even 12 hours, Susan. It's 3 or 4. And
yeah,
they didn't call until what, 8 or 9 hours later is when they're starting to officially process the scene because the coroner didn't get there till 5.
yeah. And
So
thank you, Susan, for the super chat. That's
thank you so
awesome.
much. It's
You're
very
such
sweet of
a
you guys.
she's a member and she's
That's
awesome.
great.
So thank you, Susan.
And
And
Winchill, thank you so much for
Winchill,
that. Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's awesome. And we got a couple of new members that
That's
joined
great.
a membership there. So thank you. Got a couple of new members here tonight. So that's awesome. You guys are really cool. And we're on like the last 12 minutes or 11 minutes
Yeah.
here. Almost
Did you have any?
666 seconds left. Go
Oh,
figure, right? 11 minutes and 6 seconds. So
okay.
I say that so many times, and it's funny because I've done a couple of reaction videos to like the hearings and stuff, and I don't set out to do them as 666 seconds, but the last two that I've done were like 10 minutes and something, and I was like, man, I still was able to do it in under
That's
666 seconds.
awesome.
So it's pretty funny, but yeah,
Did
we're
you have it?
getting close to 7,000 members here on Murder Metal Mayhem, and
Yeah.
I really appreciate it, man. You guys are fantastic, and we're gonna do these. I'm gonna try to do these every Sunday. I don't know, Blogger, we haven't talked about this. Are you free to do this next Sunday?
Yeah, we're definitely gonna talk about it. I'm hoping I am because it'd be really fun to like get with you guys every week and talk
Yeah, so
and just
we'll
chat
talk
about it more
about
and more.
that. Yeah, and
Yeah,
I'm gonna have AR Hayes is gonna do one of these with me.
that's great.
I'm sure Lucky will. Lucky and I are friends. Me, Lucky,
That's
and
great.
AR are close, and
That's
we
cool.
like to we chat or text message each other. Always get a kick
Hi,
out of
AR.
getting a text from AR Hayes. He's just awesome. And so, yeah, we do genuinely are all friends. So,
That's
you know,
awesome.
it's really nice to have those guys
Thank you, Farm
in
Girl.
my corner.
Sweet.
So yeah, that's just super cool.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah,
Well,
it's
I know you were going to do a giveaway, right, or something towards the
yeah,
end.
I'm going to do a contest here. So let me get this cooking here. So we're going to do a contest. All right. I love contests.
Me
And
too.
so
That's how I
that's how
got
you and
involved.
I met.
Hey.
You won the contest to do the video
Yeah,
with me,
exactly.
and you never left. You just never
Yeah, I
left.
didn't. I didn't. You
So
stuck with me.
I must not be that terrible to work with, Blogger Girl.
No, not at all.
Am I some kind of diva, like not letting like green M&Ms in the dish and all that kind of
Oh my God.
stuff?
Imagine.
No, no.
I wouldn't
And
be
you know,
here.
the one thing, the advantage of watching my videos is that I don't mess with my hair. You know, a lot of
Right.
the video
I
YouTubers
do. Don't judge me,
fooling with
people.
their hair. Nika, I love Nika's channel, but oh my God, with the flip in the hair, and you don't have any of that here. Totally
I should do.
bald, shave my
Okay.
head every day. So back to the contest. So we're going to do the Murder Metal Mayhem t-shirt is the grand prize. You get to
Okay.
pick which shirt you get, and all you got to do, I'm going to pull this up here, is
Okay,
I'm
guys,
going
I
to
think you
give you
have a
this
question, right?
email address. Oh, I
Oh,
spelled it
it's
wrong.
spelled wrong.
Yeah, that's special.
Let
Murder
me fix
Metal
it.
Mayhem at gmail.com is my contest email. So that is not an email to send to if you want to
Have
get a
stuff.
hold of me. So this is just for contests. So here's the question. I'm
Okay.
keeping this as simple as it gets. When I do my 666 seconds videos, how many seconds are they? Okay. I don't know how much easier I can make it. Okay. Email the answer. How many seconds is a 666 seconds video less than? Okay. Murder Metal Mayhem at Gmail. Keeping it simple, guys. I want to get a lot of response. So go ahead and email that. I'm going to do a random number generator. I'll pick the grand prize with that. I'll get a hold of you. US only. I'm sorry, but I spent $30 to send a t-shirt to Sweden. And I was like, okay, I can't do this. So they're expensive to ship anywhere outside of the US. So this is US only. And then the second prize is the Deeper Than Dead novel of mine that I wrote that I think you guys will like if you like horror, thrillers, stuff like that. It's not hack and slash and real gory. It's it's a novel, but it's more psychological terror than gross, and I don't do that. So that's the second prize, and then the remaining 3 or 4 I've got will get Murder Metal Mayhem stickers, so you can drop your kids off at school and then have the cops follow you home because you got the sticker in your window. So that's all you got to do, guys. Just email me there.
Yeah, don't put it in the chat, guys. Make sure you email it to
Yeah,
I
because
see
I'm
people
not going
trying
to
to do
go
it.
through the chat. Yeah, you got to email it to that email, the answer
Yeah.
to the question. It's very simple. I don't know how much simpler I could have made it. And but I wanted to get more response than just a handful. So there you go. And
Yay.
we're kind of winding this thing down again. Really appreciate you guys for being a part of this
Yeah,
first chat here, or the first live
for sure.
back and forth with you guys. I know that Blogger Girl and I have been anxious to do this, and I'm going to do it again next Sunday, 4 o'clock, and hopefully Blogger Girl can join me, and we'll keep
Yeah.
you guys posted. But that's my plan. I think this time seems to work good with my schedule. You can watch us on the replay if you didn't catch the whole
Yeah.
live. So
And make
you
sure you
can go
check out
check
my
out.
channel too. That'd be great, guys.
That's right. Blogger Girl's channel is excellent. She's been putting out some good videos, so support that. Go subscribe to her if you haven't already. Hit that like button. If you're not a subscriber, I'd love to have you subscribe. If you're not
Yeah,
a member,
definitely.
I've got a membership. The members get all my stuff right as soon as I post, and they don't have to wait till they come out and I do a weekly email to or post that everybody knows what my schedule is going to be, videos coming out, what I'm working on, all the details. So there you go. Gave you guys a lot of stuff to chew on, and still seeing that this is 368 people still in
That's
here.
great.
So
I think we have time maybe for one more question, one or two more
yeah, it's
questions.
cool. Yeah, I'm
Do you
looking
have any
here.
other ones?
I'm scanning to see if I've got anything. Let's see. Yeah, I see this one is interesting, kind of off of what I was saying, that this is a script and they're all actors. That's certainly what it feels like to me when I watch this thing. It's like a
It's
bad play. You know what I mean?
like a
I mean,
telenovela
even
in the court
Judge.
anyway.
I mean, that that sounds like something if you wrote it, the editor would be like, dude, come on now. That's just
Come out with a
stupid.
better name. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was in the army with a major, and that was kind of funny, but I'm looking here to see if I can find any.
Let me see if I had any other. I think I had something. Yeah, Dr. Edelman, his first spelling of his first name was the same as Brian's. Thought that was ironic. The
Yes,
expert for the
that is
survey.
interesting. That is very
And then
interesting.
he basically, and then just to touch on that, he explained the PCA was the crux of the bias in the town. He was saying by them putting that out. And
Right.
remember, like the first scene that Bill was freaking out about the PowerPoint, going, no, he can't use his PowerPoint. We haven't had a chance to look at it. We don't know, and blah, blah, blah. They end up playing it, and the first clip that they show is Bill Thompson telling everyone the PCA is coming, but when it comes, go ahead and share it out to your viewers, your listeners, like
Right. That was
encouraging the
epic.
media.
That
That
was
was so
epic.
funny. I started dying laughing that live. I
You
was
know that
watching that
had to
live.
piss him off so bad. That's why
And
he
I was
was
like,
throwing a fit about the
right.
PowerPoint, because he knew that he was going to be front and center and look like a jackass that he is for
I
the
was laughing,
nonsense
like,
that he's been pulling.
why are you so upset over stock photos? Because that's what it looked like to me. I didn't understand why he was getting so upset. And I was
I
like,
know.
and then when he played that, I was like, no, now we know why he was
Exactly.
so mad.
Exactly. Yeah, that was just hilarious. I think that
Thank you
and
guys for subscribing. Appreciate it.
here's a quick one here. Why would, whether it was BK or anybody, why would they leave the two alive? Well, I think that's kind of the obvious, in my opinion, is the two that were quote unquote left alive were somehow involved or privy to it and made sure they weren't there when it
I don't think they
happened.
were there. That's
I
my flat
agree.
out explanation of it, because the fact that they say someone passed out, I think they came up on it and passed out when they saw it. One of them did. And
Right.
I agree with you. Probably involved. And somehow,
Yeah.
like, they not in the sense that they knew that that was going to happen. I want to be clear about that. I don't know if they necessarily thought it was going to go to that extent, but
Right.
we've heard like that WSU Kim mom talk about how it could have just been a
Mhm.
shakedown, or like, hey, don't be throwing our drugs away, things like that. And it went to a whole nother level.
Right.
Or just, I don't know. I'm wondering if it could have been involved. I'm trying to think of the Sigma Chi angle in that sense, but because they did call them over the next morning. So that's where I'm
Right.
like, is there a
First
connection
ones.
there with that? Mm-hmm.
First ones to
So,
call. So, well, we're down here to a minute. I did want to
ah,
thank Blogger Girl for coming on here with me. I want to
thanks,
thank all
guys.
of you guys for checking this out. I hope you like this kind of interaction. And I'd like to do this every week
It
as
was so
often as I
fun.
can. I'm sure there'll be a Sunday I got plans or something I can't do it, but I'll
Right.
let you know. So stay tuned. And if you're a subscriber, you'll know what's going on. We still got 367 people in here,
That's
which is just
awesome.
awesome. So thank you guys so much. Check out that True Crime Deep Cuts. I think you'll really like it. It's an hour and 15. So if you got to break it up into a couple of sit downs, it's worth it, because you're going to learn a ton about how bad they screwed up this crime scene and the DNA. So we'll see you guys next time.
Bye,
We'll
guys.
do this again. Thank you guys
Yeah,
very
it's
much.
fun.
It was
Have a great
very
night,
fun.
guys.
All right. We'll see you next time.